Shadows of deception. The old clock on the wall ticked steadily, its rhythmic sound the only noise in the dimly lit room. The faint scent of stale coffee and paper filled the air, a constant reminder of long nights and unsolved cases. Detective Aria Lane sat at her desk, eyes fixed on the stack of files in front of her, files that detailed a nightmare slowly consuming the small town of Blackridge. 7 people had vanished without a trace in the last 2 months: a schoolteacher, a mechanic, a mother of 2 ordinary lives interrupted by a darkness no one could explain. Rumors swirled through the town like wildfire, whispers of strange sightings and eerie sounds. The air was thick with fear and suspicion, and every shadow seemed to hold a threat. A knock at her office door broke her concentration. It was Officer Hale, his face pale and drawn. "Another one's gone," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Emma Raines. Same pattern, house empty, no signs of struggle." Aria grabbed her coat and followed him to the Raines residence. The house was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that felt heavy and unnatural. As they moved through the rooms, Aria's sharp eyes took in every detail. Family photos sat undisturbed on the mantel, the dinner table still set for 2, as if life had simply stopped. In Emma's bedroom, something caught her attention, a mirror with strange, smudged fingerprints, as though someone had pressed their hands against it in desperation. "Get this to forensics," she instructed Hale. As he left, she turned back to the mirror. A faint whisper brushed her ears, sending a chill down her spine. The sound was barely there, like a breath against her neck, but it was enough to make her heart pound. The investigation intensified, but leads were scarce. Aria began noticing patterns she couldn't explain, strange symbols etched into door frames, flickering streetlights that dimmed when she passed, and the uneasy feeling of being watched. Then one night, Aria received an anonymous tip. The distorted voice on the line instructed her to an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town. The warehouse loomed in the darkness, its jagged silhouette cutting against the starless sky like a forgotten ruin. Aria hesitated at the entrance, her pulse quickening as an unnatural stillness pressed in around her. She stepped inside, her flashlight slicing through the dense, suffocating shadows. The air was thick with the scent of damp and rust, mingling with something more elusive, a faint, coppery tang that made her stomach tighten. Every creak of the floorboards beneath her feet sent a spike of tension up her spine, and the silence felt watchful, almost alive. Aria's fingers tightened around the flashlight, her mind racing with every worst-case scenario she'd ever imagined. As she moved forward, the door slammed shut behind her. "Welcome, Detective," a voice echoed. The figure stepped into the light. "Emma Raines." "Emma?" Aria's voice wavered. "What's going on?" "They lied to you," Emma said, eyes glinting with a strange light. "We were never victims, we chose this." Before Aria could react, others emerged from the shadows, the missing people. Their faces were calm, their eyes empty. "The town has secrets," Emma whispered. "We've embraced them, you should too." A cold hand touched Aria's shoulder, and the world spun into darkness. When she woke, she was back in her office. Everything seemed normal, but something inside her had shifted. A cold stillness settled in her mind. The rhythmic ticking of the clock felt louder, more insistent, like a pulse that wasn't hers. As she stared at the mirror on her wall, she noticed more than just her reflection. Shadows seemed to writhe just out of sight, and her own eyes glinted with the same strange, otherworldly light she had seen in Emma's. In the days that followed, Aria's behavior grew distant. She spoke in measured tones, her once fierce determination softened into an eerie calm. She began visiting places she never had before, the outskirts of the woods where strange symbols were carved into trees, the old church long abandoned and filled with whispers. The townspeople sensed something off, but no one dared question it. Even Officer Hale noticed the change, the way her eyes lingered too long on dark corners, the way she seemed to listen to sounds no one else could hear. Though the disappearances stopped, the town's fear only deepened, because the darkness hadn't left. It had simply found a new host. The disappearances stopped. But Aria Lane was no longer the detective she once was, and Blackridge was never the same again.